All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. I'm overwhelmed by your recorded applause on a Monday. It is terrific to be with you. I have brought all my friends with me. Kim is here.
Kim, how are you?
And Tony is
Thanks,
here.
Tony.
In fact, we're all hanging out. We're discussing what we're going to do, getting everything in order, and then we're just kind of saying, okay, let's go. And then nothing happens. And then Tony, who's still looking for something else that I asked him to find, I said, dude, let's go. We said, oh, you want to start?
Yeah, I'm still tired from Vegas.
So 1 minute of the delay, I feel, can be reasonably ascribed to Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah, but
No.
the rest of the delay can be is mine.
We could try ignoring it, sir.
I probably. Richard Delamater is back and in the chat early. He says, sup, bitches. Yes, I'm back. I was spiritually and financially cleansed in Lake Tahoe. Happy to be home. I miss my genius from the future. Kim. Wow.
Kim, how are you?
Richard Delamater is the, I'd say he's the substance abuse correspondent for the show. He's sort of he's a Hunter S. Thompson type, living life large. Has an opinion on everything and always clear-headed in a kind of narco way. I was wearing my bucket hat and representing at Harrah's. I don't know why people love me so much. I'll tell you the key to getting people to love you so much at Harrah's. Tipping. Yes, that, if you want to really be greeted like Frank Sinatra used to be greeted as he walked into the Desert Inn or wherever the hell those guys used to go, start throwing some money around. Tip some people, and they will love you. Yes, I'm a big believer in tipping. Tip the chambermaids a bunch of money. Tip everybody money. I tip like I'm winning when I Lake Tahoe in Las Vegas, even though I never am. But I tip like, wow, that guy's doing well. But I'm not. You know the truth of it. Anyway, it's a chance when you go to some of these places to, become a different person. And so there you are. Anyway, Richard, welcome into the chat. We welcome everybody who showed up early. Zero sum will get the honors of being first into our chat with this comment. Will Trump ever tie his shoelaces correctly? Is Trump even tying his own shoelaces? These are the issues that confront America at this time of rising despotism. Is the despot tying his shoes properly? I also heard Trump say in a press conference this morning, says Randy, with South Korea's president, that if Trump, hadn't been president in 2016, there might have been, or would have been, he said, a nuclear war between North and South Korea. I don't know. He says a lot of stuff. We'll give you some stuff. Yeah. I mean, you can pull quotes from the guy. He's pretty much he's a train wreck in the quote. Nullifidian with some birthdays. Thank you for Billy Ray Cyrus's birthday. Who's Bret Harte? Do you know Bret?
Bret Hart?
Yeah.
Isn't he a football player?
Is he?
I don't know.
It would be nice if we
Google it.
I am Googling it.
Okay, that's cool. Monty Hall, Sean Connery, Gene Simmons, Elvis Costello, and Tim Burton. Well, that's a pretty cool crew.
Bret
that
Hart
are born on this August 25th.
was an American short story writer and poet, best remembered for short fiction featuring miners, gamblers, and other romantic figures of the California Gold Rush.
Wow, that actually sounds like a body of work I'm sorry I missed.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Well, yeah, interesting. What is it, Tony?
Oh, so I guess that's different than the wrestler Bret Hart. That was a Canadian.
Oh, was he? How does he spell his name?
I think it's just Heart.
Oh, I see. Yeah, this guy spelled it with an E, so that made it
fancy.
He was from the Gold Rush era, says Becky E. Very smart audience. If you're new here, we have a very learned audience, okay? So get ready for that. And they're also a community that's formed here. We came out of the ashes of a radio station, a very big radio station with a true legacy in the San Francisco Bay Area and across Northern and Central California, and the station literally dissolved. I mean, it went away. It didn't literally dissolve. I guess that would mean that all molecularly it would. Yeah, no, I didn't mean that. I mean, but the station was wiped away by the parent company. It was just cheaper for them to wipe it away and start a gambling talk radio show that ran through the entire schedule on the station. They were expecting gambling to be legalized, sports gambling in California, when they made this decision. So they ran syndicated stuff, and they figured, hey, we don't have to pay anybody. We don't have to pay Kim or Mark or Albert or whatever. We don't have to pay producers. We don't have to pay, you get it. And it was an abysmal failure because nobody listened, and gambling was not legalized in sports in California. And so we, in the meantime, came over here, and that's our origin story. And so we're on YouTube, but this as an audio presentation goes up to Spotify, goes up to iTunes and Google Podcasts. All major podcast platforms have this show. But back to the audience came with us. A bunch of people came with us, and they make up our community. They live chat when the show is live. We're live every day for 2 hours from like 11 to 1 in the West, and it's 2 to 4 in the East, etc. And I think you'll find that community is really a big part of the show. So we hope you get into that too. So if you're new, welcome, and let's get going.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Chicago is lovely this time of year, Kim, and a great place to send those National Guard troops. We've got plenty of troops in America, and we're not putting them to enough use, apparently, is the general disposition of the President of the United States. He sees America's blue cities as cauldrons of unrest, crime, graffiti, homelessness. And you know what? He's not wrong. He's not wrong. But I don't know that the Army or military and National Guard has any training in addressing any of those issues that I just mentioned. It's really not their jam. But nonetheless, Donald Trump wants it. Tony, you have a cut. This is from the Oval this morning. Go ahead.
Chicago's a mess. You have an incompetent mayor, grossly incompetent. And we'll straighten that one out probably next. That'll be our next one after this. And it won't even be tough. And the people in Chicago, Mr. Vice President, are screaming for us to come.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Is that screaming I hear? Yeah.
He was asked if he would consider sending the National Guard troops to Republican cities with high crime, and he said, there aren't that many.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Trump was kind of a rambling man this morning, doing all the rap on Chicago and Washington, how beautiful Washington is now. How about that, Tony? I've forgotten how beautiful Washington is. I grew up there, but I guess it's even more beautiful now that Donald Trump has put troops on the streets.
Doesn't sound good, but Washington was the most dangerous place in this country. And now, you know what? It's probably the safest place in our country. Everyone's starting to come here. The restaurants now you can't get in. Many of them closed because they couldn't open with crime. Everybody before me is happy what I'm doing. Most of you won't say that because you're radical left. The newspapers are so dishonest. The press is totally dishonest, but that's all right. We've gotten used to it. And we won in a landslide, so they obviously lost their power. I mean, it's impossible to imagine that when you get 97% negative stories, purposely negative stories, even though you've done 97% positive things, that you could win an election in a landslide, winning all seven. Think of it, all 7 swing states, winning by the popular vote by millions of votes. We had a fantastic, the best is your districts out of 3,000 districts. I guess we won 3,500. We won 2,750, and they won 500. And that's, to me, the best of all. And we had tremendous in every way, the election. And it's hard to believe you can do that when you have a corrupt media. But many of you are corrupt, and it's nothing we can do about it. But we keep winning, and we're going to keep winning. And this whole story on crime is incredible that the Democrats wouldn't be with us. So the mayor of Chicago, I watched him this morning, he said, Trump doesn't know what he's talking about. He only apprehended 9 people. Well, number one, that's false. It's thousands. We'll get into that. But more importantly than
speaking
anything,
of
we took
false,
guns away. We
let me
have
offer my own
some of the
false
worst
words, thousands.
career
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
professionals out of the country already. They've been taken out of the country, and some are in solid confinement because these were killers. We arrested some very bad people. And in the last 11 days, again, I hate to say it because it sounds so ridiculous, but in the last 11 days, we've had no murders. And that's the first time that's taken place in years, actually years. We always have a murder a week. They call it a murder a week. You come here from Iowa, you come here from Indiana.
If you want to
come here
check out
from
what he says, none
Idaho,
of it tracks.
because
None
you're
of
so
it
proud
tracks.
of your country, you love your country, and then you get murdered. Your son gets murdered, your daughter gets murdered, you get murdered. See the media, you get murdered. Many of you have been mugged in Washington, you just don't want to talk about it. And I know that every time I do this with you, you almost everything, but every time I do this with you, you people are saying to yourselves, he's right, and then you write a negative story. But we are doing an incredible job. The people behind me are amazing. We're working very well with the Washington police, as you know. The DC National Guard is unbelievable. We're also getting tremendous help from Secret Service. And we are at a point where Washington is booming again. People are pouring in like we haven't seen for years. Nobody wanted to come here. They didn't want to come here and get murdered. I have a friend of mine who is a very successful son. And I said, where is your son going to be this weekend? He said, he's going to Washington with his friends. I said, really? Yeah, he's wanted to do it for 4 years, but he couldn't do it because it was so unsafe. And he's a tough kid, too. It's so unsafe. And he ended up staying 3 nights, going out to restaurants all 3 nights. He said it was so beautiful, so peaceful. Because all the criminals are either arrested or they're hiding. And we're finding the ones that are hiding. So I want to thank Pam Bondi. I want to thank our vice president. I want to thank everybody standing behind me because they are really, Gaddy, you've been unbelievable, by the way.
He's got Pam Bondi. He's got all, the murder.
They have done an unbelievable job. They're working 24 hours a day. And Washington,
we know that
DC
J.D.
is
Vance
now
isn't
in great
working
shape.
24 hours a day. He's
I'm
on
going to be
vacation
working with
for
Clark
most of the weeks.
Construction, which
He
is by
just shows
far
up and
your
does the
biggest
Sunday
construction
shows.
company. And we're going to also beautify Washington. We're going to rip down the broken medians, fix them. We're going to put asphalt on the roads. We're not ripping them apart like these stupid people do. They rip a road. They rip a road down to the dirt,
solid gold parts. So
and then they spend 5 years in building the new one, and then it starts settling. The whole thing is so crazy. And they'll spend hundreds of millions of dollars on a road. I'll spend about $2, and it'll look better. So we're going to be replacing medians. We're going to be replacing much of the asphalt in the road, which
this is my horror.
City,
He's
which
just
is
rambling.
in bad shape.
Yeah,
We have great stripers. We have great contractors, but we have to let them do the thing. The Congress has said that they'll give us whatever money is needed to fix up the Capitol. This is the
Okay,
Capitol.
Grandpa.
And we're not going to spend a lot. It's going to go fast, and it will be spotless. And we want it spotless for the World Cup and for the Olympics. You saw the World Cup was here the other day. And come to think of it, there's your trophy for the World Cup.
Pulls back.
In fact,
And you'll
it's
also
solid
see
gold.
those on
That's
YouTube.
actually
Everybody
solid gold,
behind
so
him. This,
heavy that some of the people in this
the
room
heavy
wouldn't be able
hitters
to lift it up. I think what I'm going to do is
They
place
go
it
on
right above the
media.
angel,
See your
right
Christie
over there.
Gnome,
That's solid gold too. We're going to put it right up there.
J.D.
Look
Vance,
at that.
he's talking about the solid
There's a
gold.
solid gold trophy. They know how to get to me, I like the angel better, to be honest with you. So we're going to sign, and then we'll take a few questions, and we'll tell you how good a job we're doing. We want to go from here to other places, but I was telling some of the people that in a certain way, you really want to be asked to go. I hate to barge in on a city and then be treated horribly by corrupt politicians and bad politicians, like a guy like Pritzker. He ought to spend more time in the gym, actually. This guy is a disaster. Gavin Newsom's a disaster. When we went, we saved Los Angeles. You wouldn't have been able to have the Olympics in Los Angeles. You're barely able to have it now. They did lose 25,000 houses to a fire that should have never occurred because they didn't let the water come down from the Pacific Northwest, which you guys don't want to write about. I had to break into the water supply to let the water down. And even now, we want more. We can have much more. It's less than half of what should be coming in. I don't know, they have a political thing about it.
Those who are in California
like
know that's completely bogus. Those just looking at it, I think you know that as well. It is completely bogus, the idea that there wasn't
city,
water, there was water being held back.
And then be criticized by some corrupt or incompetent governor where crime is rampant. Like, take a look at DC. Crime was
Okay,
rampant.
let's
was at the all-time
now
worst.
you can
It
he's
got
on a
really
loop.
bad
It's a
during the
long
Biden
loop.
4
We
years.
can wrap up, Tony. Thank you very much for that.
What
But
was
I
that?
wanted you to He is rambling, of course, but he's rambling about things that do pertain to policy. That's the scary part. He's not just blithering. He's blithering about things that have a coherence to the policy associated with them. He did send troops into Washington, D.C. There are American troops on the streets of Washington, D.C. He is considering sending troops to Chicago. And all the rest of it is just, and you can see them all back there. So lucky to have their job. Pete Hegseth, who wouldn't be in charge of anything in the private sector. He was a weekend host on Fox and Friends. A weekend host. He was picked up by Trump to run the Pentagon. But what he's really best at is standing behind Trump and nodding, and then going out on the attack. He's his attack dog, along with J.D. Vance. And I'll play you some J.D. Vance in a second. He was out this weekend taking a break from his vacations to defend the president and the president's policy and disposition toward Ukraine and Russia. Christie Noem. Again, Department of Homeland Security, it's the biggest, because of George Bush, thank you very much, the biggest department in all of Washington, under it, all of these different agencies. And she's there behind the president, nodding, and then she'll go out and do another commercial, another public service announcement that will run on radio and television and in airports to talk about how the United States Immigration and Enforcement Office is deporting so many people and getting the job done the way the American people want, deporting violent offenders, etc. When we know the truth of it, they're just going to a quinceañera and picking up everybody and deporting families from high school graduations to Home Depots on the agricultural fields of California. It's a travesty. It's a travesty. And it's been enabled by this party that has gone extremely radically right. He always talks about the radical left. I think the mainstream, I would say middle left, looks radical compared to where you are, Mr. President. You're radical right, way out there. I mean, I think the whole Overton window, what is acceptable as policy, has changed. Anyway, his move on Chicago may follow. We will see. But I mean, this happens at the same time that you're seeing the, again, you have to use almost the words that they've used, the weaponization of the Justice Department. You saw what happened with John Bolton, someone who, I'm not a fan of John Bolton. He's this super hawk, but he was close to Trump. Then coming out of that administration, he wrote a book. The book was dry cleaned, inspected for anything that could be in the least bit sensitive from the standpoint of national secrets or any other aspects of the book that gave away certain facts and information that the government felt would be damaging. So again, the galleys of the book were inspected by the White House and they gave it the green light. And he wrote this book courageously, talking about the utter chaos of the Trump administration during his first term and how Trump knew nothing about anything, took no briefings, etc. So he's had it out, Trump has, for John Bolton, I would imagine, for some time. And so this weekend, there were comments on that. And then Trump reacted to those comments. Isn't that what happened? I have Chris Christie, I think, first. Let's go to that one, Tony, if you can. This is Chris Christie on ABC's weekend show talking about the John Bolton raid. And he starts by saying, to get a judge to approve actually going into Bolton's residence and buildings, that is to say where his office is housed, there might have had to have been some kind of probable cause. flimsy though it might be, but this is part of a bigger picture, which is one of recrimination. Go ahead.
Had to get 2 separate judges to sign off on those search warrants. So they have to have some evidence of probable cause.
Absolutely. And look, let's be fair. When we talked about this in the context of the raid of Mar-a-Lago, I said the same thing at that point, that a federal judge had found probable cause to sign off on a search warrant, which means there's something. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's evidence beyond a reasonable doubt of guilt to a violation of a federal law, but it means there's probable cause that a crime, evidence of a crime was kept at the residence where he was searched. Same thing applies to John Bolton. And in this instance, they got 2 judges. They got a search warrant in Maryland. They got a search warrant in the District of Columbia. And let's face it, John, the District of Columbia is not known as a bastion of, conservative judges. Right. So I would say that there's real evidence that they believe something is there. Now, let's see what happens from here. But I think it's kind of funny to hear, the president, talk the way he does about Bolton and classified information. Yet when he had the classified information, the same rules didn't apply.
And to see the FBI.
That's the thing, right? You've got it's super wild to have a president who denied the subpoenas of the FBI, denied the requests by archivists for these records that they knew were in his possession to be returned. Denied those requests, right? Ignored those requests. That's not what happened here, right? They got a judge's approval and they stormed in. It's like what happened on Mar-a-Lago. They sent the request. They did that whole dance. It went on for a little over a year, I believe, and definitely at least a little over a year. And then finally, the FBI had to get subpoenas, and they didn't go in a high-profile way. I mean, it seems as though the bell was rung, a flare was fired to tell everybody that they were going into John Bolton's place. That's part of what this administration does. They want all their flexes to be on full display. And that's why you saw Dr. Phil in the early days of the immigration raids. And that's why Dean Cain is on with the other, with the immigration raids. And you see very high profile, those public service announcements when it comes to just immigration raids, because I'm mentioning that. That's all designed to show you what we're doing. And now let me show you how we're getting back if you step out on us. And that's what the John Bolton raid was all about. And that's the reason it was so well covered. Every network was there. Now, I understand that once the Mar-a-Lago thing got underway, then you had network coverage. Please don't misunderstand me. I haven't forgotten it completely. But I guess what I'm trying to say is they didn't go clanking in, sirens on, in a loud manner so as to attract attention. They didn't even, it would seem, want to go into Mar-a-Lago to get these thousands of documents that the guy has. I mean, sensitive, some of them military documents. So what they find in John Bolton's place, I don't know, but I just know that it fits a dance. It fits a pattern of going after Trump's enemies. And so Chris Christie, with that comment that he made, which is, again, like kind of what he does, again, not a Chris Christie fan at all. Donald Trump wasn't happy. And now Donald Trump is saying, I'm going after Chris Christie. Do we have that? Do we have that tweet or a bit of that? No, I can't recall if we have it or not. But he's here it is. This is a little something from, is it Morning Joe? Go ahead.
Oh, really? Because he's threatening Chris Christie now because he doesn't like what Chris says on This Week. And you just sit and wonder that the people that are sitting in the administration right now making these moves, do they not understand that what goes around comes around? If they were so shocked and stunned and deeply saddened by what happened over the last 4 years, they're doing it this 4 years. What do they think is going to happen when Democrats get back into power?
Because you know how I feel about this.
Dude, do we really want this cycle to continue?
Democrats aren't getting back in.
Well, do they think Democrats will get back into power? I mean, that's the question, right?
That's what Bill Maher was talking about. Democrats will. Let me just assure everybody right now, they will get back into power. Our independents will get back into power. And people that are doing this right now will leave office with a cloud over their head, wondering what happens next.
Right.
Now, let's
Thank you.
stop
And in the
this.
afterlife, we'll all be together and hold hands too. And Jesus will be serving the most delicious food. It's going to be great in 4 years. It really is. Tell me, in history, when fascists give up power to an election, when has it ever happened? When do authoritarians give up power?
By force only.
They don't.
Mm-hmm.
And these guys are not. So I can sit here every day and blow sunshine up your butt like so many other people do. And I understand everybody was operating on the hopium that was associated with Kamala Harris. You know, I never told you that I thought she would win. Thought she had problems as a candidate, but more to the point, I thought the Democrats had a problem with their position. I also feel as though Donald Trump is a transformational, generational political figure. I am not embracing him, but I think you have to understand the power of Trump and that charisma. I know he's blithering, he's blathering. What is he saying? He's often, he knows nothing. He's making up facts. Got it. But his power to communicate was so significant that it blunted all efforts to push him back. People who served in his last administration talked about his authoritarian flex and instincts. People in his last administration talked about his incompetence. People in his last administration talked about the fact he never read any briefing materials. He would lose focus almost immediately if it wasn't about him. All these things we knew. But he reascended because he shared the anger of enough people in the U.S. societally, culturally, and honestly, because I think we're low information voters. A lot of people just didn't even hear that stuff I was talking about.
So are you saying why vote then in the midterms if we know their first strike was to redistrict in a way to try to circumvent voters? Are we saying that there's no way that in the midterms the Democrats retain the House?
I think I would always suggest that you vote. I think we should vote. Absolutely. I mean, I think I'm not saying surrender, but I'm also giving you some harsh realities, and I don't mean to meet them all out here before I get to my good pal Gary Dietrich, who again he'll talk me back and go, no, Mark, really, I think whatever. But I want to get with Gary, but I also want to be clear about this just to round it out. Yeah, I do think that that this isn't a crew that's going to leave power. They've done a lot to get into power, and as a result, I think they realize they can work with things to retain power. We saw how with fake electors, with a scheme that even included a possible martial law, you can declare an emergency. I mean, that's what Trump has done in Los Angeles. He could do it again in cities across the country. He could do it again nationwide. He could postpone the election. A lot of things can happen. Again, I don't want to skip it too far ahead in the movie. I know I tend not to have the most encouraging view, but everything I said has happened. All of the lack of faith I had in the American people has been borne out by their decision to vote him in. And now we see a lot of the actions that were predicted and even advertised on the way in. All right, Gary Dietrich next, and we'll get into the real politics. And maybe, I mean, again, all politics is local. When you look at America as a bunch of locales sewn together with a general philosophy, maybe there is a way to at least blunt some of this guy's worst instincts, and we'll see. All right, Dietrich next. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
This guy's our colleague from KGO Radio. I love my Gary Dietrich. I was so excited when Gary Dietrich decided to join us over here. Really, really cool. I mean, he just has such a great, deep knowledge of politics in general and California politics so especially. How about it for the great Gary Dietrich, everyone?
Yes, thank you so much, Mark, for that introduction. And you know what? I want you to know something. Your physician calls me on a regular basis about 9:30, 9:45 on Monday mornings. Gary, could you help me with Mark's blood pressure this week? I I'm doing my best to keep Mark upright, but every once in a while, I think his head's going to explode. So
It's not wrong. It's not wrong. Look, I have you don't have to comment. My first half hour of the show, I kind of knocked around. We did a little bit of Washington, D.C., of Chicago, which appears to be in Trump crosshairs, the back and forth. He's smack talking the governor of Maryland, as I recall. Also, he's smack talking anyone who's pushing back or showing any kind of resistance to him. Christie, I mentioned on the Sunday show. So you can, help separate, the smoke from the fire maybe a bit, and tell me what we should focus on and what is most relevant.
Yeah, okay. Well, I do think that to Ken's point, I definitely think today we ought to touch on the midterms next year and in light of the redistricting. Because, Mark, I think, again, I'm going to leave you with more than a glimmer of hope, knowing your proclivities when we finish that conversation. But can I just say this about that? To quote politicians widely known, and we won't name them, in the mid-'70s who use that phrase frequently, how many people in the United States, and I mean this sincerely, and this is no knock on the former esteemed governor of New Jersey, how many people, if you walk down the street, could even tell you who Christie is anymore? Okay. I mean, this is one of the things that really amazes me about this White House and about Donald Trump. Nobody cares about Christie. I mean, respectfully to the former governor, really, truly. I mean, honest to gosh, who really knows, let alone cares, what Christie did or the famous embrace of Obama when he visited it after the hurricane? I mean, I just think this whole thing sometimes borders on the amusing, because what is he going to do? I mean, I'm not even sure sometimes why the network shows still have him on, because to most people's minds, he is not politically relevant. He has no political future, right? So I don't know.
Yeah. I would just say one thing about Christie, and that is that his relevance is only as a media personality. He is a political analyst. He does what you do. He speaks very well. He has a comfort there, and I think as a result, that's why he's there. I don't like the casting on that show anyway. I don't like Christie particularly. I don't at all like, what's her name, Democrat on that show. I can't believe I spaced her name. But I don't like either one of them, and they have Priebus on too. I don't. So that whole show has got casting problems, if you ask me. But you're right. Christie is at once sort of seen as an ascendant political figure. Clearly, that ship has sailed for him. So
yeah, absolutely. And I know why he's on the show. Look, Chris is a smart guy. Don't get me wrong. Okay. And he had, at one point, a pretty bright political future. He kind of squandered that in some ways. We don't need to detail that today. But the point of the matter is, they have him on because he's from Jersey, okay? And he makes sometimes some incendiary comments, including about the president. And of course, in the modern media, they love that. So that's why he's on.
Yeah. What does it say?
Okay, so midterms.
Would you like me to? Go ahead. Go.
No. Would you like me to dive into the thing about
I want to talk about.
midterms?
Well, I wanted to ask you about redistricting, and I wanted to ask you about the midterms. So you start wherever you want on that.
Okay. Well, let's do this all backwards and do the midterms first. Okay. I'm going to encourage you, and then we'll work backwards. How does that sound?
Cool.
All right.
Let's do it.
So regardless, we're going to get into a moment the actual math. Now that Texas is done, California is done on redistricting. By the way, I said on there this morning, look, the word redistricting has been used more in the last 30 days than it has in all of previous human history. Previous human history combined, from 0 to 30 days ago, it's been used more. And I tell you, it just is remarkable where 30 days ago, even in the great golden state of California, the idea of a special election, in 10 weeks on November 4th, 2025, that wasn't even on people's radar screens, as you know, Mark. And now it's all the rage. I got my first 2 mailers already on the November 4th special election in California. And the ink wasn't even dry on the governor's signature on the ballot. On the legislation, now going to be the Prop 50. People are wondering. You're going to hear a lot about Prop 50 all over the country, by the way. You can't avoid this, even in Montana, folks. And Prop 50 was chosen, Mark, if you didn't know this, because they see it as a 50-state crusade against Trump. That's why they picked Prop 50. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Well, let me just say this for a moment.
Yeah.
You know, the Texas thing they ran through at warp speed. So California felt like, hey, we got to do something. I mean, you can't just sit here and let them steamroll you, right? I don't know what happened to Gary.
Equally culpable on gerrymandering. We've talked about this. Anybody who knows the history of gerrymandering, it's equal opportunity exploitation. Okay. I mean, seriously. I mean, it does not take a deep dive on Google or even your, a world history book and American history book to see that gerrymandering has been equal opportunity craziness forever and ever. Amen. I'm simply saying, with those in the rearview mirror, I'm going to get to the new math on redistricting in a moment. Okay. But let me encourage you first, Mark, because I think you could use them. Next year's midterms. Okay. The end of the math, which I'll cover real quickly, in the states that are to be watching now this week and beyond in the next month or so, that could have very significant impacts on how this turns out in terms of the numbers going into next year. But remember, we're only 14 months away now from the midterms. And here's the bottom line, Mark, to start with, as they say, the top line headline. And that is that even if Republicans are fully successful, and I'll run the numbers by you in other states, including Texas and California in a moment, quickly. But if that's successful, they still have a historical uphill battle to hold on to the House next year. With a margin right now of less than a half a dozen, and midterm elections that typically, as you know, with only very, very few exceptions, notably interesting, Biden, hanging on to the House in a midterm is very difficult to do for a whole variety of reasons. And so even now, political analysts around the country are saying, even if the Republicans max out their gerrymandering numbers next year, people are calling a toss-up about whether they're going to be able to hang on to the House. And Democrats have a very good shot to retake it in 14 months, which is Newsom now is famously saying will end the Trump presidency, at least as I've shared on this show, Mark, in a couple of key ways. One is all fiscal measures have to be moved through the House first. That makes anything that Trump would want to do that ties in a dollar attached to it very difficult. And of course, any major legislative priorities, of course, have to go through the House. So is your blood pressure monitored right now? Is it showing any improvement, Mark?
Well, I'll tell you, that is a sweeping and important comment that you've made, which is that Democrats, even with the redistricting that is anticipated both in Texas and possibly elsewhere, even with that, you argue that the Democrats are likely to regain House control. That would be.
Well, I would say I won't put it in the likely category. I'll say that they have a very, very good shot. Okay. And historically speaking, well, Mark, I try to be really accurate. As they say it, as my esteemed alma mater.
Sorry to interrupt. I'm laughing because when you said I'm not saying it's likely. I'm saying it's very, very or whatever. You made a distinction.
Very possible.
Possible.
Very possible.
Okay.
Now look, words matter, as they say at the Kennedy School, my esteemed alma mater. Words matter. And I can't, Larry Sabato, famously at the University of Virginia political shop, is famous for his likely, leaning, toss-up, estimations. And there's a reason for that, okay? No, I don't think it's likely the Democrats take control of the House. That's why I said the words most observers say it's a 50-50 proposition at this point. It really is. But that's a far cry from where people have thought that if Republicans are successful and adding as many as 10 or 12 seats, okay, through a gerrymander process, or at least the possibility is the way you should say it, of 10 or 12 seats, there's no guarantee even if they got those, they're going to hang out of the House. That's what I'm saying, okay? And then if you look at individual races, much of this gerrymandering does not guarantee seats. Even in Texas and Florida, Texas and California, we talked about this last week. There's several of those seats in both states. Democrats, there's no guarantee of that. Some of them are just moved into the toss-up category. We talked about just one. I'll mention one. Darrell Issa last week, Southern California congressman, been in forever, has lots of his own money. That's good. That's been gerrymandered by Democrats in California, but that's no guarantee they're going to pick that seat up. And the same could be said about several seats in Texas. So I think I want to be very clear and accurate with people about what's actually happening and not either create false hopes or create, straw men that really shouldn't be there. I hope that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense. And honestly, when you said 50-50, that was the first time I really got a lock on it, because very, very possible and likely. And when you draw those distinctions, like I didn't say very likely, I said very, very possible. You can see how I get lost in, well, what's very, very possible and what's likely. So when you say 50-50, it really helps me. And also when you draw it out, because you've just explained exactly what you've meant. So I appreciate that detail.
Okay, I think what I'll do, Mark, is simply bring a whiteboard like what they used to use on the old TV stuff, and I'll have the redistrict-o-meter up there, and we'll be giving you the little red and green arrow about where Mark's blood pressure should be for the day.
I love the realistic-o-meter. You know what I'm going to do right now in the middle of your segment? I'm going to ask Mr. Predicto whether or not the Democrats are going to retake the House.
Okay, you do that.
Thinks there's a 50-50. Will the Democrats retake the House in the midterms?
The answer cannot be found at this moment.
Oh, the answer cannot be found at this moment for Mr. Predictor.
And that is exactly correct. Okay, quickly. I want to get this in quickly. Now that what I said was now that Texas and Florida are settled, okay, that was back there in the way back comments about 7.5 minutes ago. Here's the deal. Next up, Florida. DeSantis is going to appoint a committee as of next month to look at redistricting Florida. And it almost certainly is going to happen. I'll tell you that. They could pick up somewhere, it's estimated between 1 and 3 seats. Ohio, they have to redistrict. I won't go on all the wonky reasons why they've got to do a midterm redistricting, mid-decade redistricting. But suffice it to say, 2 or 3 potential pickups there. And then Missouri and Indiana, those are both looking at it single digits, 1 district that is potentially pick up in both of those states. So do the math. It's like I was talking earlier. There could be 10. Democrats, here's the scorecard. 5 potential in California. We know that as of last week. The November 4th special election will determine whether that map is approved by California voters, which is required as a constitutional amendment. And then now, quickly, New York and Illinois, very tough to move their numbers. Why? Because they have processes in their own states that make it difficult to make changes. And then finally, the numbers are these. In Illinois, you've only got 3 Republicans left. So your maximum pickup is 3. Even if you completely exorcise Republicans out of your state, which has happened in states like Massachusetts, in other words, and elsewhere. And the other state I just mentioned, a maximum pickup of the 1 Republican congressional seat left. So you see why Democrats who have already done their own gerrymanders make it difficult on themselves to pick up extra seats right now. And if New York is successful, by the way, it takes them, and again, I won't go into the wonkish reasons why, but they wouldn't be able to get it done by the midterms. Kathy Hochul, the governor, says probably by 28. There you are, my friend. There's the map.
That was really, really great, actually. Really, really great. I want to ask you about something that you've alluded to along the way, demographic shifts in the U.S. and how it might affect the general looking out. I mean, there are a lot of chess pieces being moved around now, both for the midterms and then their views toward the general. I mean, I'll point to Gavin Newsom, for example, who clearly seems to be an ascendant political figure for what would be the general election. And that's what he really wants, is to run for president. Can you speak to both things, the demography and how that might relate and how that might have changed in America, and also the rise of Newsom and how you see that? Because you know Newsom so well, and you know his political fortunes and his soft spots so well.
Right. Let's leave Newsom. Let's start on the big trending thing that we're going to be talking about a lot after this redistricting. And that is, okay, so even if California is successful, you know how this goes, Mark, and people around the country, I know it's confusing, but this is the plan, that this mid-decade redistricting would only, the one drawn up by the legislature, a couple of days they took to draw these maps with the consent, of course, of the Democratic House delegation, but they would only take effect in 26 and be effective in 26, 28, and 30, at which time the plan, at least the announced plan, Republicans don't believe this, but the announced plan is to go back to the Independent Redistricting Commission, and then they would draw the districts for the next decade, as they typically are assigned to do and constitutionally mandated to do. for 30 and beyond. Okay, that's the deal. Now, here's the deal. What's really important? What is really important? What's really important is the next census. And I mentioned this a couple of times ago with you, Mark, but the new data, and I'm one of the few wonks that has dug down in this that I know and talked about it on air. The new census data shows mid-decade that based on current trends, and I heard some factors that may even ramp that up further in the last week, the current trends would have California losing as many as 4 congressional seats because of population stability and decline during COVID. And New York likewise losing seats because of, again, population shift to other parts of the country, to the point where that would be 7 congressional seats would leave those states. And guess where the population is increased and those seats are likely to go, Mark? You guessed it, Texas and Florida. Okay,
where everybody, it's where all the Californians moved, Texas and Florida.
And by the way, a couple other red states and also a couple other blue states that are likely to lose maybe 1 for a net shift. And this is just raw demographics. This is no politics in it. This is the way it works every 10 years, right? You take the 435 House members and they, by constitutional mandate, must be divided up equally by population around the country. That's why California, for the first time in its 150-year history, last time lost 1 seat. We're now down from 53 to 52. So that's the deal. So that could mean a shift of, say, people are estimating now as many as 10 House seats out of blue states to red states. Okay, that's the deal on the demographic shift. Why is that also important in terms of Newsom for the appropriate media segue here? Because remember, the Electoral College is based on a combination of the 435 House seats, 100 U.S. Senate seats, and 3 additional, okay, for Puerto Rico. And that means you have a total of 435. Excuse me, 538. 435, 100, and the 3. That's how we get to the 538 number. People are falling asleep. I understand this, but this is the math, people.
Sure,
okay.
Actually, this is the important stuff. So go ahead.
Yeah. So you're going to have a shift in the House after 2030, okay, as of the 2032 election, and you're going to have a shift in the Electoral College because of that. That is hugely significant. It will not take effect in 28 when Gavin wants to run for the first time. But whether he or Kermit the Frog wins, okay, or anybody else, given their political stripes, that 2032 election could see a major significant shift in the Electoral College to the tune of 10 to 12 Electoral College votes. And as you know how close it's been, Mark, that could be huge. Now, Gavin, he knows this. These people obviously know this. So let's make no mistake about it. Regardless of all the purity talk about preserving democracy and everything else, and of course the hate Trump language and everything else, look, if you get in as a Democrat in 2028, the 2032 re-election cycle could be an absolute nightmare for you in terms of both the Electoral College and how your House is going to look if you're elected. There you go.
Wow, that's fascinating. It's fascinating and kind of a bit depressing if you're a Democrat or even an independent. It seems as though you're saying, based on population shifts, you just have much more of there's more leverage to red states as a result of the movement of Americans to Texas and Florida, for starters.
And by the way, I'm sorry, Mark, I'll just say, people talk about this a lot. Some of that is ideologically driven, as you know. Some people are the kind of super anti-Gavin Newsom. I'm moving out of the state. Some of it is just pure business, as you know. The variance in tax rates, both individual property tax rates for people wanting to buy and afford a home. Some is for business, right? Moving manufacturing facilities to places like Nevada and Texas. Some of it is tech growth in places like Austin, Texas. Well, all of a sudden it's exploded and people are moving from Silicon Valley and stuff there. So there's a lot of reasons for those shifts, but they are there. And also part of it is the aging, by the way. The old song about people moving from the Northeast, especially New York to Florida, right? We have a graying population. And so some of it's attributed to that. But I don't want to say de facto that movement inherently means all those votes, that is the Electoral College votes and the House seats go to Republicans. Not necessarily. I'm saying there's going to be big shifts, which could lead to that. But remember, Each one of those House races is fought individually, and I mentioned that earlier. So I don't want to say there's just a big red tidal wave coming in 2032, but there are going to be significant changes.
I mean, we've talked about how demographic movement through the years, demographic movement in Texas has kind of pointed to maybe a purplish state. Even Florida, in this sort of way, could become purplish. But the way that purple turns red is, see your first point, the gerrymandering, which again is, kind of the coin of the realm when it comes to the House politics, it seems. And so you end up a state that might be purple really quacks red, at least when it comes to the House, right?
Well, maybe or maybe not, but more significant actually is electoral college, Mark. And the reason for it is this, that and there's been much discussion about this, that electoral college votes nationally on every 50 state should be given proportionally. In other words, the percentage you win, right, of Republican vote or Democrat. And the reason why that's significant to people is because you have winner take all states like California, blue leaning, Texas and Florida, red leaning. And that's what skews the electoral college sometimes and makes these big run-ups in numbers. The vote might be fairly close in one of those states, but because it's winner take all, Trump or whoever, would have won all of electoral college votes in Texas or Florida, and conversely, Kamala Harris or somebody else, all in a state like California.
I'm really got only another couple of minutes. I want to just ask you about the move to take over Washington, D.C., the quacking like you're going to take over Chicago, and, this is only the beginning. We've cleaned things up in an hour. Oh, my God, it was an awful place filled with graffiti and homeless people, and now people are saying it's the most beautiful city in the world. You have to come here. My friend has a son who said he's never, seen anything like this, and he's been all over the world with his friend. It's the blithering stuff. But there's a real occupation going on in Washington, D.C. Of course, they're not where the crime is in Southeast D.C., or at least a lot of the concentration of crime is there. But can you just comment on this move and then the additional flex, which might include Chicago next?
Yeah, well, from a purely legal and constitutional point of view, as I know you know, Mark, but maybe some of our listeners and viewers do not, it was easy to do this in D.C. because it is under federal control. Is there a mayor of D.C.? Yes. And we won't go into all the wonky details about this, but as you know, the D.C. budget is actually passed by Congress, okay? And even the mayor of Washington, D.C. said, yes, the president does, by the Constitution, have ultimate authority over the District of Columbia, okay? And so it's a lot, and point of the matter is, all the legal scholars will tell you this is relatively easy to do in the District of Columbia because of that, all right? And there's been other examples of this over the course of history to a lesser degree than this, but we won't go into that. Okay, but in other cities, in other states, you run into massive divisions of constitutional power. And this is where, for example, the case of the National Guard in LA, why it's become so important, okay? Because does the president have that kind of authority that he exercised in Los Angeles, or does he not? And as you know, the Newsom administration has brought a lawsuit in that regard, and that's continuing through the appeals process and the court process. As I told you months ago, I think that is going to end up in the Supreme Court. And the same is going to be true in these other jurisdictions, Mark, be it Chicago, be it he's talking about Baltimore, whatever. It's going to be much tougher because there's going to have to be, state of emergency, whatever. That was the rationales, used in Los Angeles when cars were burned, et cetera, and also when federal personnel were accosted, as you know, and federal property and buildings were attacked to some degree by protesters, or at least occupied. And I don't think there was some glass breakage, whatever. But the point of the matter is that was the rationale, and we'll see. I think the president, even this morning, it's being reported, is backing off a little on the language of Chicago, for example, for that very reason.
Well, you point to Los Angeles, and you can point to a situation. It was in a small area, but maybe there was protest was overflowing, et cetera. But what's the real game here, Gary? There's nothing like that in Washington, D.C. right now, and there's nothing like that in Chicago or anything. Let's cut the crap and tell me what's really going on here.
Yeah, it's really about the crime, Mark. And I think the tipping point, as as frequently as often happens in politics, and especially as frequently happens with the current occupant of the White House, it was the attack, remember, on the young couple outside of the Jewish History Museum.
Sure.
And then especially it was that young intern who was beaten young congressional staffer beaten severely. And then the intern from Kansas in a Republican House office that was fatally shot, as you know, in DC. And it was all of those dominoes kind of falling. But in addition to, as you know, when this started happening, people on the media and even more liberal leaning people in the media saying, yeah, you know what? I don't walk out in the streets of DC at night. I'm not walking 10 blocks to a restaurant from our studios or whatever. I just don't do it because of the safety issue. So it's the crime thing, Mark, that has really gotten the attention. And, you know, we'll see where this goes.
I could see the crime thing actually being a political winner for Trump. I just wonder, and maybe this is the first move to kind of hang a light on it to, you know, say, hey, I'm doing something about crime. I'm doing the only thing I can do as president. I'm moving into, okay. But there's so many other ways you could have addressed crime in DC. As you say, you have control over it. You could insist and lean on all these different appropriations packages to appropriate more money for cops in DC. You could flood the zone with cops if you wanted to. I mean, those people, cops, are trained anyway to handle the kind of thing that you're talking about, the crime to which you've referred. And putting the National Guard there, again, aside from a symbolic thing to say, hey, I'm on this and I'm outraged by what's happening with American cities, which, as I say, could be a political winner for you. I don't see that it's substantively doing anything. These guys aren't trained to do the sorts of things that you're talking about.
Well, let me address that real quickly in just a second. As often happens, and you see this in all kinds of places, in airports, and famously in Israel, and just a whole host of, it's the so-called quote-unquote show of force, Mark. You know what I mean? That's why you put uniforms and boots in places and on the ground. That's frequently why it happens. That's why even in major events, you watch what's going to happen, for example, in the Olympics in Los Angeles. There's going to be a show of force, right? And that's seen as a preventive deterrent. How effective that's going to be, we'll see. But the other part about it is you're raising some important things that are now being talked about, especially in light of the fact that as of this morning, some of those National Guard troops who previously and up till this point in DC were not allowed to carry their sidearms, not allowed to carry their service weapons, some apparently are now being allowed to do that. There is concern, even amongst some in the defense establishment and outside, that these folks, to your point, Mark, and is obvious, are not trained in street, policing. They're not trained, they're war fighters. That's what they're trained for, right? And defensive posture, and to some degree for the National Guard, as you know, they're also sent in national emergencies, both to protect neighborhoods from looting, et cetera, and to assist populations. That has been something they have done regularly. But this is going to be a challenge on the streets of DC, because what are you going to do if and when that first incident with a National Guard member is not deemed as standard police protocol?
Sure. I mean, I think I game it out. I mean, if you're there at the behest of Donald Trump, you're likely to get a pass for whatever you do, especially if you're a service member or a police officer. I will mention just one thing. It's kind of, a technical point of sorts. They're on a 29-day, assignment. You may know more about this than I do. I was just reading about it. And the reason it's a 29-day assignment is very specific, because at 29 days, they don't have to be paid, these National Guardsmen. Again, these are accountants, they're teachers, they're people, they've got real lives, they've got families, and now here they are in Washington, I think, being used as a prop. But in any case, they don't have to be compensated after 29 days. If it's a BAH1 type compensation, they are given essentially an allowance, for the fact that they've been, moved to this other kind of a theater of work. In any case, at the end of 29 days, they'll be terminated there, and then they'll kick up another 29 days. It's like the way the employers get around paying overtime. That's the way the government's getting around having to compensate these National Guardsmen with this BAH type 1. I saw it and I was reading about it. I thought, wow, that's just, I guess that's clever, or, it's sort of insulting. to these guys who've, sacrificed so much.
Well, there's another, and some people say maybe even more significant 30-day clock ticking, calendar turning moment, Mark. And that is that the president does have unilateral authority for 30 days in this DC deployment. Okay. And then after that, there's supposed to be a consultation with Congress. All right. Which, as you can well imagine, would be a whole different ballgame. So, and Congress
would it,
got a session.
Would it, you think, Gary? You think that Congress wouldn't just roll over for him?
Well, I think they probably would eventually approve it. And I think that, frankly, is probably growing more likely if this is, quote unquote, successful between now and then. There's even some Democrats who say, well, how am I going to your point, Mark, politically, how am I going to oppose it if it can be demonstrated that, A, there's lower crime? I mean, there's talking about there's been no murders in the last 10 days. We'll see if that continues, right? So it could be politically very difficult for Democrats to oppose it, but certainly there'd be some kind of a debate about it in Congress. And could that hang up an additional 30-day deployment? We'll see. But of course, Congress is in recess right now. So when they come back, this is going to be an issue for better or for worse for members of both the Senate and the House.
I think Trump would rather have them discussing this issue than the Epstein file release. So we'll see. I've kept you over time. Love that you spend time with us, my friend. You always bring the real story, and I really appreciate you walking us through the numbers. I'd love those who are just joining. I encourage you to go back in this conversation. We'll drop it as a separate video and actually listen to the way Gary talks about different states in the House redistricting and what the future of the House might look like, notwithstanding whatever redistricting might happen. I thought that was really instructive. I really thank you for that, pal.
Sure, of course, Mark. Happy to help with those numbers, as well as, I hope, the blood pressure numbers, Mark, as well.
He's the great Gary Dietrich. Thanks, Gary. Find him on iHeart Radio and across the media spectrum when it comes to politics. He is often on the CBS television stations. He is brought to us here, and our thanks to Bill Campbell at RE/MAX Gold. If you are relocating into or from Northern California, this is where Bill Campbell just knows his stuff. You need a highly respected real estate professional in that area? Text or call Bill Campbell at RE/MAX Gold, 530-448-7474, 530-448-7474. Bill Campbell, RE/MAX Gold.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Stay at home and get baked.
Right on, everybody. So why am I seeing I see in the chat that I guess Gary's mic was hotter than mine or something. It's hard sometimes with the people coming in from different places on the platform. Comments, Tony?
I understand there's nothing I can do about it because when I fixed it is when his microphone got muted. So there's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah.
That's so internet does internet things.
Yeah. That's thank you for that answer, which I usually get on all the questions that I have about things. In the military, when you get deployed, says Wes, you get combat pay. Do they get combat pay? You also become eligible for more post-military benefits. National Guard is different. I mentioned that that one way in which you get an allowance. I'm sure there are other, I'm not an expert on National Guard compensation. I know that of that one because I was reading about it over the weekend. But you'll have to actually, bore down, and you can tell me what compensation they get. I mean, I think it's modest if it's anything. And people take the chat takes care of itself, doesn't it, Kim? It cleanses itself, doesn't it? Is Kim still?
I don't know what you mean, Mark.
Well, I thought you were watching the chat.
I am watching the chat. What do you mean it cleanses itself? You mean like, if someone says something bad, then they'll be...
Hey, chatters, click the 3 dots on the right next to Ron K's name. Select report or pick harassment and bullying so YouTube will take action if Kim does not. That's what I'm talking about.
Got it. Yeah.
I don't know who that is.
You can ban someone if you find their comments offensive.
Why is Keith... I don't think this is offensive. I thought crime overall was down in D.C., Keith K says. Is that who you're talking about, Keith K? I don't know. I don't really get super involved in the chat, but I try to pick out things that I think might forward the discussion. But the answer is crime is down in D.C. But it's also true that there's crime in D.C. Look, I grew up in Washington, D.C. I go back and visit all the time. There is crime there. It's historically, it's an urban area. Like, I don't leave stuff in the car. I mean, I was raised that way, though. And the same thing is true in L.A. The same is true in San Francisco.
Right.
I mean, you can say that there, depending on where you are in any of those places, there are degrees of, criminal exposure, that you're involved in. But
even in Petaluma, I teach my kids when we leave the car, if you want it and you want to keep it, take it with you, because it might not be here when we get back, right?
Come on, Mark, don't talk to Kim like that. Wow. I'm sorry.
I blame you.
I'm really sorry if who should I apologize to?
My words upset so many people.
It is true. I don't know what to do. I really don't. Is there any way I can make this right to you, Kim, if I've offended you in some way?
No, it's okay.
Is it?
Yeah.
All right.
I love you anyway.
Thank you. Thank you. You love me despite the fact that I speak to you in sometimes a way that you're not happy with?
Yeah, I know it. It's all in jest.
I see.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel as though you speak to me in too harsh a way, Kim, or is it all really one way?
There are times.
Would you like to apologize for that?
No, because then I think how you speak to me, and then it all feels okay.
All right.
Y'all can all go to hell, and I'm going back to Texas.
All right. Very well. Whatever.
It's a love fest here on the Mark Thompson Show.
I don't want to leave our next guest waiting too long, but I do want to encourage everybody to smash the like button.
Smash
it's
it with your iron
thing
rod
on YouTube, which helps with the algorithm. So if we get enough thumbs up, we're then served up in other people's content, and they don't even know that we're here otherwise. So I really do appreciate that. So smash the thumbs up. And I also just want to mention, I'm drinking this morning Coachella Valley coffee, and with every cup, I achieve greater mental clarity, and I feel myself elevated. I am going to encourage you to be elevated and to achieve that same mental clarity with Coachella Valley coffee or tea and spices. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. It's a boutique roastery. This isn't some, low-end discount place that's selling you beans that have been around for months and months and months. This is all fresh crop, and it is hand-curated, hand-roasted, and an extraordinary offering. I think it's the best coffee I've ever tasted, and their Clarity blend I'm hooked on. But I'm drinking the Sunrise today. You find tasting profiles underneath all of these beans, everything on their website at CoachellaValleyCoffee.com, but do take our discount, Mark T, at checkout, and you'll get 10% off. Oh, that's cool. Is that what's on the website now? I drink. It's done like the periodic table. That's terrific. Yeah. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Again, Mark T at checkout for 10% off.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I am excited. Talking about voting, and here's someone with a real background in civic engagement, and when it comes to the elections and when it comes to getting community-centered civic engagement and voter registration, she's done real work. So impressive. How about it for Jasmine Burney, everyone? Hi, Jasmine Burney. How are you?
I am well. How are you, Mark?
I'm well.
Good.
The Equal Ground Education Fund. Tell us the origin story, and then I really want to get into some of what you've done, because it's pretty impressive.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate it. Equal Ground Education Fund is a 501c3 nonprofit organization founded in 2019. We were founded shortly after Ron DeSantis took office in the winter of 2019. It was also a short time after we here in Florida passed a citizens amendment to allow returning citizens or formerly incarcerated people the ability to get their rights restored automatically. When they received their rights restoration, Governor DeSantis decided that he wanted to institute a poll tax as a result, to make it incredibly hard for people to be able to access the ballot box. And we thought, well, who was focusing on voters full-time, year-round, but particularly voters in Black communities. We know that a large portion of returning citizens were Black individuals and wanted to figure out a way to just prioritize our advocacy 365 days, not just around the election cycle. And that's how we were founded. We wanted to really be the watchdogs around the legislative process, what was coming out of it. We did not know how brutal it would get. We didn't know how busy we would become. And as a result, here we are still beating the pavement here in Florida every single day to help ensure that voters are educated about the electoral process. And then we also litigate on their behalf as well.
So I know you're not a spokesperson for the Black community anyway. I mean, it's a Black-led civic organization. That's why I can even say that with a laugh. But I do want to try to get a sense of where the Black voters that you have indeed marshaled in a way to have energized them to participate, where they are. I mean, are they dejected? Are they re-energized? Are they optimistic? Just give me an attitudinal suggestion as to where that group is. Again, understanding that that Black votership, like any kind of group in America, is not monolithic.
Correct. Not monolithic. However, they are a voting population that has been constantly targeted by both federal and state lawmakers. Their votes have been targeted. Their freedom to access the ballot box has been targeted. And so, although not monolithic, they seem to be a high priority for these institutions to remove their power. And so what I would say is that our work really, centers the ability to be able to empower Black voters around voter education, making sure that they are aware, making sure that they know what the tools are that are available to them so that they then are able to engage in the process. Our motto as an empowered community is engaged one. And so if we give them the tools, we help them work through that process, we can then see what their engagement looks like. And so a defeatist attitude is not how we enter this space. We know people power is the power that is prioritized within the work that we do and within the community. I'll even tell you, when we started taking folks to Tallahassee, we started with a group of 20 folks. And this past year, that was in 2020? This past year, we took 300. So we're seeing growth. We're seeing the interest despite the attacks mounting on our community. There's more involvement from people who want to get involved.
Well, the attacks mounting on your community, actually, I love that you reference it because in a sense, it underscores how important the community is. They wouldn't be attacking that community if they didn't have any real power. So by virtue of the fact that they're attacking us, you know that we have real power.
That's it. That is correct. There is that old saying that if our votes didn't matter, no one would be working so hard to take them away.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah.
Yes. So that's what we're experiencing.
And I have to say this, just you are such a good spokesperson for this. I mean, I can see why you're a community leader. You just have this indomitable sort of way about you, and it's a really great quality to have. So I just apart from everything, I just need to remark on that. We were talking before in the last segment about Florida and attempts to redistrict there, sort of in the manner that Texas has redistricted, a way to squeeze more GOP seats out of that state. Thoughts on that?
Yes, I would say that Florida is once again at the center of a redistricting sort of battle where our governor and we're looking at Texas's Governor Abbott are racing to the front to be, folks who carry the water for President Trump. They are working to ensure that they, gentrify and gerrymander and wipe away as many Black access and brown access districts as they possibly can. We have been here before. We have constantly been here in the state of Florida. And so much so that in 2010, Florida voters put a ballot initiative on the ballot that said you cannot create maps that are politically partisan and racially partisan or racially gerrymandered. You cannot do that. Now, that is not the same rule on the books in Texas. They don't have that. And although we have it in the state of Florida, our governor, who has handpicked this, Supreme Court, has decided to completely blow past the fact that voters have made a very clear decision by cementing it in our Constitution. So we are seeing this constant attack every single day, not just through the voter suppression, but also through our voting rights, and now through the maps that they are attempting to redraw. Let me also remind you that we just went through a census process in 2020 where Governor DeSantis was the governor and where Trump was the president. And so it's quite odd that this is a decision that they want to make at this time when they were empowered then and had full control over the count, but now want to say that they don't believe the count was done correctly.
Yeah, there's a narrative that's served by all of this. It's very hard now in America, and I understand we were always beset by some kind of political rhetoric of one sort or another, but it's really hard now to separate sort of the rhetorical narrative from the actual political narrative, and some rhetoric's in service of both, some is just in service of kind of pushing out some propaganda, and while the right hand is doing the real lift on the politics of it all. So are you optimistic then, as we roll around to midterms, that there might be a marshaling of those who didn't vote, who weren't motivated for whatever reason the last time, coming out of COVID, Biden, smeared by the GOP, I'd suggest, effectively, perhaps kept people home at best, and at worst, maybe they even voted against the Democrat, even though the Democrat was Kamala Harris in the general. I'm wondering, in the midterms, I understand it's not going to be top of ticket right yet with an issue of the sort that I just described, but are you optimistic about the midterms?
I'm optimistic, and I'm optimistic about two things specifically. One is definitely about the voters. It's definitely about communities that are coming together right now who understand, and I think understand a little bit more about how our government agencies work, who holds the power, where that power lies, and how it is then distributed. But I am also optimistic about the leaders who are stepping up at this time. When you think about a Gavin Newsom in California, or you're thinking about a Wes Moore in Maryland, who are saying, listen, it is time out for playing by the rule books that no one seems to want to respect or abide by. We have to make certain decisions that protect democracy, even if they don't look like or feel like the democracy we have always known it to be. And that is what I am optimistic about, seeing new leaders emerge through this time period that we can also lean in with and on to depend on what could possibly take shape as we head into 2026.
I'm, again, with mad respect, applauding your efforts there. And I think it's so easy to get dejected. I must confess, I have my significant moments of dejection. And you can't have those in the work you do, because you have a real goal and it's paying off. I mean, these goals you have to, again, animate these voters, get them out there, get them organized, get them excited every week about different issues. And the politics of Florida, like the politics everywhere, is local. So their vote matters. And so I'm delighted and excited for the work you do, and I'm really glad that you could join us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Give me a website, then we'll post to it. Tony, will you put this under this video? He's got it up there now. The Perfect. Best website is?
It's equal-ground.com, and then you can follow us on all social at equalgroundfl.
We will have links to both under this video. There it is, equal-ground.com. And again, founder of Equal Ground, there she is, Jasmine Burney. Jasmine, so glad again that you stopped through. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
All the best and good luck.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Feels good.
When they raided Mar-a-Lago, God didn't like that.
Well, if you're just joining us, we are a 2-hour live show, and I must tell you, it's not like me. I'm a very modest person. I don't like to take a victory lap. Even though with my Born to Peacefully Resist t-shirt available at getmarkmerch.com, a victory lap would look even better. All kinds of wonderful offerings at getmarkmerch.com. In fact, I think a lot of those click-throughs are under our YouTube video. If you're watching on YouTube, look at that. Ladies' tees, make love, not fascism. Project 1984 and a half, an Orwellian reference. There they are, the seasonal pictures. I also like the one with the sun that says born to peacefully resist. I really like that. I was wearing it the other day. I'll probably wear it tomorrow. There's other merch on there of a more traditional nature. It's not all resist or protest, although there's some pretty stuff. There's the bucket hat, made famous by Richard Delamater. Wherever he goes, he reps the bucket hat. And there's the jacket and the white and black hats. And, of course, I'm holding up in the studio what you can find there on the left of your screen. It is the crew socks, which are the Raids, the Mark Thompson Show crew socks. And you're not really a remarkable, as they have now branded themselves, until you get those crew socks. You must get them. Perfect stocking stuffer is stocking. So there you have it. $15 gets it done. Richard Delamater says, dude, get a freaking tie-dye option, exclamation point, exclamation. I don't like you yelling at me, Richard.
Why are you yelling?
I am really asking you to back off. I don't wear socks, only sandals, says Ken. Well, I guess you're off the hook then. But I would say that, in the house, you take the sandals off, stocking feet can oftentimes be great. DeSantis nuked his own tourism with his policies, says Rob Law. I think that's true. I think a lot of these policies are hurting tourism. I mean, the national policy we have, which is to hassle people who are coming into this country and then hassle them again when they're in this country as immigrants and then threaten them with deportation, then actually deport them. I mean, look what happened to that researcher from Harvard. Mm-hmm. She came in with those frog embryos that she was told to bring in, but she hadn't declared them. So instead of some kind of adjustment being made or even the embryos being rejected she was arrested and put into a holding facility in Louisiana. She was coming in Boston. She was an elite scientific researcher. This is why there's a brain drain right now in America. Usually, we see ourselves most, I think, reasonably, as a place where the greatest scientific minds come to be incubated and to be developed such that their work can really change life here in America and worldwide. Now, America is viewed as a really tough place to do research. Research money drawn away, immigrant policies that tend to create static for anybody who's not an American citizen. Even American citizens are having their citizenship questioned. So, again, when you get back to tourism, I'm not surprised that it's all down.
To me, it's just an unnecessary cruelty. They're trying to be mean to immigrants on purpose. Look at Kilmar Abrego Garcia. The guy was deported to some horrible prison, finally makes it out of this place, comes back, immediately is undergoing a court case, and now they want to take him and send him to Uganda. Yeah. Why? Look, I mean, no, I'm not saying
cruelty,
that he's not,
as they say, it's not a bug, it's a feature. That's the idea.
I'm not saying that he's the best man in the world, but why wouldn't you, if you wanted to deport someone, just send them to their home country? In this case, it would probably be a lot cheaper. Why send someone halfway across the world to Uganda? It makes no sense unless you are just being mean.
Just being mean is part of it, Back to my victory lap, I will just say that I did tell you that I thought Trump was actively stepping away from a role in the Ukraine-Russia war. I think he took the photo op swing, which is what he does. He likes the photo ops. He liked to photo op with Kim. Remember when they were at the DMZ? And he wanted the photo op of Putin. He set it up like a TV show with the red carpets, the flyover. They share a ride in the presidential vehicle. It's a huge win for Putin, of course, who is a war criminal and is viewed as the aggressor, I think, by most of the reasonable takes on what was going on in Ukraine. And so anyway, he's now legitimized. He hits Trump with the same demands he had at the beginning of this war. And you got to know the history. We were provoked by NATO, et cetera. And it goes even more than that. I'll get to it if there's a moment. Lavrov was on Meet the Press or one of those shows this weekend. And he basically said the same thing. So there's an intractable quality to where Putin and the Russians are, right? And Ukraine is faced with having to give up part of their country and get this, what they feel is tepid kinds of security guarantee. It's really unclear even what that security guarantee would be. And so the Europeans descend on Washington, Trump calls Putin, and it's all just a big mess. And he realizes on some level, I would imagine, that there's no way I'm going to be able to just throw these guys together, get some kind of deal, even temporary, and stamp my name, Trump, on it and take the victory lap. So now, this is what I've been saying for some time, Trump is taking steps back away from it. I say sometimes. Since the meeting, I felt as though Trump was going to step back from this because in certain things he said, it's reflected his feeling like this is a European problem. I'm here to be, and even J.D. Vance says, we're the middlemen. Okay. But all of that rhetoric, European problem, the middlemen, we're going to let the Europeans decide along with the Zelenskys of the world on how this is going to work. You can see Trump stepping back. Now, the tough part of that is that American weaponry is still part of this. There's still American weaponry being sold to Ukraine, but now they're buying it. Before they were just being given it. Now they're going to buy it. So I see Trump stepping away, and now he actually says it. President Trump is signaling that he would step back for now from efforts to reach a Ukraine peace deal, expressing frustration over rising casualties and the failure of the two sides to come closer to peace agreement. I'm not happy about anything about that war. Nothing, not happy at all, Trump said. He added that he would make an important decision about the future of the conflict in 2 weeks. Oh my God, dude, seriously? Give up the 2 weeks thing. Everything's in 2 weeks. We'll know which way I'm going because I'm going to go one way or the other, he said.
That says a lot.
He likes to just tease that he's a TV creation of TV, and he's a TV guy all the way. If no meeting takes place between the Kremlin and between Zelensky, I'll see whose fault it is, Trump said, because there are two actors involved in this conflict. It's going to be a very important decision, and that's whether or not it's massive sanctions or massive tariffs or both, or we do nothing and say it's your fight. And so with that, I tell you, that is Trump washing his hands of it. He doesn't want to put additional sanctions on Russia. He doesn't want to put secondary sanctions on particularly. He seems to be leaning strong Putin, right? And that might be a polite way to put it. But what he's definitely leaning, I think, is away from this entire conflict. So that was my prediction, and I think it's coming to pass. We'll see. Putin isn't going to meet with Zelensky is, of course, true. He's said as much, and the Russians have said as much. Play me a little bit of Lavrov, if you would, because I mentioned it. Tony, you've got it up there in the gate. Go ahead.
In this sense, all of Ukraine is ours. Does President Putin believe that Ukraine has a right to exist?
No, this is not true. Ukraine has the right to exist, provided it must let people go. The people whom they call terrorists, whom they call specious, and who during a referenda, several referenda in Novorossiya, in Donbass, in Crimea, decided that they belong to the Russian culture, and the government which came to power as a result of the coup was determined as a priority to exterminate everything.
But as you also know, a number of those people did not want Russia. A number of those people did not want Russia to invade. Mr. Foreign Minister, do you acknowledge that Russia invaded Ukraine?
Well, democracy is about the people, having a chance to vote. The people voted. The people pronounced themselves. And
did Russia invade Ukraine, Mr. Foreign Minister? Did Russia invade Ukraine?
Russia started special military operation to defend the people whom Zelensky and his predecessor did not consider as humans.
Okay,
They called
so there
them
you get it. It's that takes you to that history. That's the one that Putin talks about all the time. You have to know the history. So NATO provocation is part of that history, and also the ethnic ties to Russia are part of that history. That's the same dance that Hitler did with the Sudetenlands. I mean, this is not anything new. So this may be going on for a while. I want to share. Who had a thought on this? I thought there was actually a really. I know it's tough for me to watch this stuff, but I'll just go with Harry Magnan. I said Morgan, sorry. Harry Magnan. Harry Morgan, I think, was a figure from history. Magnan, magnificent Monday show, Mark. I'll get you your big donation, the best donation, in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
He's employing the Trump, it's all going to get bigger and better in 2 weeks Thank you, Harry. Love the $5. Put it to good use. In the military, when you get deployed, says Wes, you get combat pay. Do they get combat pay? Are you also, we read this, and I don't know the answer to that unless Kim has found something. I don't think I still have the answer. Richard says, I love Mark's new funky look. So California chic, biatches. Oh, really? I'm just wearing the... Thank you. Well, I love that you love it. What happened, Uncle Scrooge says, with the $2 super chat? My super chat never got read. Well, I blame Kim.
I blame you.
Well, I don't know what to say except for the fact that what happened to Uncle Scrooge's, here it is. Uncle Scrooge says, the media and everyone needs to start calling out the white supremacy and Nazi tendencies. It's already too late. Yeah, I don't know, Uncle Scrooge. Thank you for the $5 super chat. I don't know what form that takes when we say the media and everyone needs to start. I mean, I don't know what it. One of the reasons the media just doesn't. They're not going to compare anyone. I mean, I guess it's a. I don't know. I'm not counting on the media for much. So that doesn't mean I don't believe. I just think mainstream media said it. It can't be true. That's absurd. There's a lot of good reporting being done in the mainstream media, and you have to be somewhat careful. This painting with a broad brush is kind of what we do, and it really doesn't. It's not productive. Tom Graves with a $2 super chat. Trump's third term should be in prison. Richard Delamater with a $2 super chat. Geniuses shouldn't have to beg. Chip in a couple of dollars. Yeah, we shouldn't have to beg. We're not begging. We're just explaining. See this $2 donation? Richard Delamater says, you could afford $2, right? So Richard is now campaigning for us to get more contributions, $2 apiece.
Which is nice of him. That's kind.
It is nice of him. Richard is always looking out for us.
Mm-hmm.
He really is. Where my Epstein files at, says Katz and Jen. Yeah. Let me give you some Epstein before Kim's news. I want to give you an Epstein update. Yeah.
The Mark Thompson Show.
The story that really involves so many high-profile officials, both Democrats and Republicans, and internationally, so many high-profile people, that billions of dollars was being moved, billions, into accounts involving Jeffrey Epstein. And there was unquestionably human trafficking going on. Women from Eastern Europe, women and girls from underage girls from all over the world. They were recruited. They were groomed by Ghislaine Maxwell. She herself lied about it and was convicted by a jury, serving 20 years. Then the president's former attorney, Todd Blanche, number 2 at the Justice Department, goes down and meets with her. And then she gets this sweetheart deal. By the way, the attorney that he was meeting with and discussing, her attorney is like his buddy. They did a podcast together. So he's meeting with this guy who's his buddy, He's handling Ghislaine Maxwell, and she tells them exactly what they want to hear. Donald Trump had nothing to do with it. We discussed on this show exactly what was going to be said. And we could have written the transcript that the conversation now is reflected in, that we've all read. So I'm going to play you a little bit of a tape, a recording between Blanche and Ghislaine Maxwell. But again, this is a curated statement designed to, A, get better living conditions than the conditions she was living under in prison, and B, to get a pardon, which will be forthcoming as well. So here's part A, which was followed, if not 24, then 48 hours later, by her release, her virtually immediate release from that Florida prison to this far more minimum prison facility where sex offenders are not typically housed. Go ahead, Tony.
As far as I'm concerned, President Trump was always very cordial and very kind to me, and I just want to say that I admire his extraordinary achievement in becoming the president now, and I like him, and I've always liked him.
And did you ever hear Mr. Epstein or anybody say that President Trump had done anything inappropriate with masseuses or with anybody in your world?
Absolutely never.
Oh, that should do it then, right? Yeah. Never saw it.
Family of the victims, specifically Virginia Jeffrey, their family is outraged that the tape of that conversation or those conversations were released. They say it did nothing but give Ghislaine Maxwell an opportunity to rewrite history.
I couldn't agree more. Mm-hmm. Deborah says it. She was coached before the tape was started. Yeah, clearly.
Mm-hmm.
So
they call the interview totally bizarre.
When one of the other inmates, says Katzenjam, complained that she and others didn't want this child sex trafficking monster there in the prison, she, the one complaining, was transferred to Houston's maximum security federal prison from that minimum security prison. I don't know if that's true, but if it is, wow. Don't step out of line with these people. Pardon me and I will pardon you, says Dirk is jerk. Yeah. What did they do? Hand her a script, says D. Elliott? Yeah, seemed pretty right on. Now, Michael Wolff, writing a book about Epstein and, of course, a book about Trump, has a lot in the way of recordings. He has hours and hours and hours, I mean, tens of hours of recording of Epstein conversations and also Trump conversations. But in this case, let's talk about the Epstein conversations. Here is Wolff talking about what he thinks the Epstein tapes and files are about.
What's actually in the Epstein files, portions of which are now being released to Congress? This is my surmise about what the government holds. First, there are the depositions taken from the many accusers of Jeffrey Epstein. Then there are the FBI's separate interviews with some of the accusers and an assessment of their credibility, which might not be pleasing to the MAGA people. Then there's the DOJ's internal discussions of why they took the unprecedented step in 2019 of breaking their 2007 non-prosecution agreement with Epstein, and potentially who brought pressure on whom to make this happen and to whose advantage this might, again, unprecedented act might have been. Then there's the investigation of the death, which I suspect was cursory. Then there are his emails, which will connect perhaps hundreds of new people to the list of people with which Epstein was acquainted. including many people in the first Trump administration, many Trump friends, and quite likely they contain new details about Epstein's relationship with Trump. Then the hard drive. And here we might likely find financial information that will alarm, worry, possibly destabilize many regimes abroad. In other words, much of what is in these files will reflect badly on everyone, keeping this scandal going for many years. Therefore, what we will likely see is only versions of what we have seen before. And
that's exactly
the secrets, the true secrets, will remain hidden for some time to come.
That's exactly what we have thought. That, and here's why, and it's quick and it's simple. You had the arrest of Jeffrey Epstein, the rearrest of Jeffrey Epstein, the incarceration of Jeffrey Epstein, and the charging of Jeffrey Epstein, and the suiciding of Jeffrey Epstein. That all happened while Trump was president. So if you wanted to release any information about Jeffrey Epstein and all his heinous acts, that was the time to do it. I mean, you know, MAGA Nation wants it, and Trump got on the train that had already left the station for MAGA Nation about how, and so they didn't release it, and then Biden comes into power. So then they start banging on Biden. Release it, release it, release it. Clinton was on the plane. Bill Gates was on the plane. We know it was all those Democrats. They were running, you know, they're predators, they're sex traffickers, all the stuff about the Democrats that was grown in the darkest darkness of Q-related conspiracy stuff, and just the conspiracy stuff that got that guy to shoot up that pizza parlor, saying that, you know, in the basement there's all this stuff going on. There's not even a basement in the pizza parlor, but you know, this is the real stuff of conspiracies. So all that happened during the Biden administration. So you got the Trump administration, again, that's when he was taken, Epstein, and that's when he was suicided. All the 4 years of Biden where the MAGA's banging, 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 and now Trump is back. And there's the call to release. Everybody involved in government, they were all part of that same MAGA bang, bang, bang on Biden to release it. You know, FBI has it, they could release it tomorrow. That's what Kash Patel said on the Joe Rogan show. Now Kash Patel is the FBI. And he's not releasing it tomorrow. And Pam Bondi also calling for it to be released during the time that Biden was president. She's not releasing it. And Trump himself, he's not releasing it. So this is the simple part. If Biden and Trump and all of those people who dined out on getting it released, all that Epstein information, if none of them are releasing it, and they're all saying, oh, you know what? It turns out there's not much there. We thought there would be, and there's just not. You'll have to take my word for it. It must really be damning on a level that does include, as I say, so many in the GOP, so many in the Democrats. That's just for American politics. So many who are involved as luminaries in the business community, and then so many heads of state worldwide. This was a worldwide human trafficking organization, and money, big money, billions of dollars was moved along the way. We know some of that because of the Jeffrey Epstein money movements that we can follow. So Michael Wolff has to be right. We're never going to ever get a real story. It's all going to be some version of what we've seen, where you get a release of some grand jury stuff or something that preceded the grand jury, some testimony of the sort that, I mean, I call testimony test-a-lying, where Ghislaine says after the fact, you know, Trump had nothing to do with it. Wow, he was always great. I wish we had more time. I'd like to talk about how great Trump is.
Yeah.
Maybe at the end of this back and forth about Jeffrey Epstein, I can talk more about how great and respectable Donald Trump was. Yeah, we're not seeing anything.
By the way,
Epstein.
I mean, it kind of just really slams home that that's a lie. If she had said, you know, Trump really had nothing to do with it, I never saw him in any compromising position, that almost is one thing. But then to go on and say, oh, and by the way, I just love Trump so much. He's always been so kind to me. He's just the best of the best of the best. Okay, now we get it.
Yeah. Hey.
It's like laying it on a little thick, sister.
Right. Take it down 50%. Let's take two. Take two, but let's just take it down a little bit. Yeah.
Did you hear that there's going to be a posthumous book released by one of the victims
Virginia
in this
Giuffre,
case?
yeah.
She is putting out this book, or her survivors, called Nobody's Girl, a memoir of surviving abuse and fighting for justice, that she was involved in the writing of. So maybe, as you say, we will get some new information, or some of her memories. It's interesting to me how people don't believe the victims in this case. They're clamoring for information and clamoring for the files to be released, but there have been things released by the victims, and people seem to just kind of downplay it.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's the sad part. She takes her own life, and her voice then is quieted. I do think that there's been a huge shift from victim testimony to, what mysteries lie in the Epstein tapes and files, and by the way, there are literal tapes. There are recording tapes, and it's suggested by Pam Bondi that it's all just Jeffrey Epstein getting it on with all these people. No, it's not. You don't wire the whole place and in multiple places have it all wired and just have pictures of, come on. So there's a lot of lying going on, but you're right, lost in all of it, the victims. So I wanted to mention something else that's going on. This is sort of substantive, so in a different way. So I wanted to...
The Mark Thompson Show.
I think something's happening that is really interesting to me. It's kind of intriguing, and it's not a Republican-Democrat, although, as you'll see, it's sort of... it's definitely not old school Republican. And I'm going to be talking later today. I think we're recording an interview later today with kind of an old school Republican, and it'll be fun because I'll mention this is one of the things that I think is just striking. The government is taking a stake in Intel. Now, remember that Donald Trump was dumping on Intel and their CEO and demanding the CEO's resignation. He was talking about how Intel is selling a bunch of chips to China, and he's not going to permit that deal. It was a security risk. And he was just really, merciless in going after Intel and going after Intel's CEO. Well, then he made a deal for the U.S. to have a piece of Intel. And now he's boasting about the U.S.'s new stake in Intel. He says that stupid people are upset with the move that he says is going to bring more money and jobs to the U.S. And Kevin Hassett, who's the White House economic advisor, has gone on and talks about the Intel move as part of a series of moves that we may see in a broader strategy to create a sovereign wealth fund that could include more companies. That means a sovereign wealth fund, of course, is a bunch of money that the U.S. has and that we will invest as a country in various companies. So we own a piece of those companies. Now, I'm going to let you listen to Kevin Hassett in a second, but I just want to mention that is straight up socialism, communism. Okay. That is, that is unadulterated socialism, communism. That is the state owning the means of production. That's the simple thing you'll remember from the Communist Manifesto, from all of the, all of the most socialist things. It's the state owning the means of production. In this case, NVidia, which is supposed to be the super good chip. Tony knows more about this than I do. It's used in all this stuff, right, Tony? The NVIDIA chip is like,
graphics cards for computers, video game consoles, it's graphics chips, their own,
And so the sale of this stuff to China is a very big deal. And the government now having a piece of Intel it's just the beginning, says Kevin Hassett. Go ahead and show a little bit of what Kevin Hassett said.
Kevin, though, is this the beginning of a larger effort by the U.S. government to take equity stakes in other industries that we subsidize or other companies in the AI and chip space that we subsidize? So a good example is AMD. Another example might be Taiwan Semiconductor.
Right. Well, I think this is a very, very special circumstance because of the massive amount of CHIPS Act spending that was coming Intel's way. But the president has made it clear all the way back to the campaign that he thinks that in the end, it would be great if the U.S. could start to build up a sovereign wealth fund. And so I'm sure that at some point there'll be more transactions, if not in this industry, in other industries.
Kevin, though, is this the beginning?
So this could be the future. Now, I'll say this. I've always felt, as those who've listened for a while or watched for a while, I think the American people get screwed on the oil companies. Look at what a bromance the administration has with the oil companies. They're unplugging a wind energy project that is almost completely finished, and the money for it has already been appropriated. But they're unplugging it because Trump is so against, and the EPA in this case, so against wind power, alternative energy of any sort. It's absurd. It's bad business. It's a horrible way to go because you've invested so much money into this huge wind project that to get rid of it now is just, it's stupid. But this administration is so committed to dirty energy that they want more fossil fuel production. They want more natural gas production. They're unapologetic about it. And so I've always felt, great, if you're going to lease all of these lands, public lands, you own these lands as Americans. If we're going to lease them at a huge discount to these oil companies, if we're going to subsidize these oil companies with insane tax subsidies, we're funding the pumping of oil and natural gas out of the ground. If we're going to do that, why doesn't oil and natural gas have to stay in the U.S.? It doesn't. If you get it here, it stays here. That's my position. So as long as you're taking a piece of Intel, why don't you take a piece of these oil companies? You're letting them drill and do oil exploration and natural gas exploration on U.S. soil. That soil belongs to Americans. Why do Americans get no benefit from it? You say, well, it does, Mark, with all of this drilling, drill, baby, drill, that helps bring prices at the pump down. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. All of that energy goes out onto the world market. It's immediately exported. So we have to buy it the same way everybody else does. Again, as long as you guys are open to the government owning pieces of things, you should own a piece of all of those companies that get domestic permits for oil exploration. Full stop. So, once again, this isn't classic GOP. Classic GOP would say free market. The government should stay out of these businesses. But the Trump GOP, MAGA, they're all about ownership, and look, you want me to okay you exporting chips to China? How about wetting my beak? How about giving me a little of the action? That's the new USA. Again, love it, man. You're good with it? I want a piece of oil and natural gas exploitation in America. If you're going to do it on American soil, the American people should accrue some benefit from it. Kim.
I don't think they are disguising this as a tax either. I don't know how they just are making it. Is it a fee? Is it a governmental fee that they're asking for?
No, they're taking ownership. They're taking 15% ownership in the goddamn company.
15% of they're taking 15% of the revenues.
Well, they're taking 15% of the revenues. So you're saying that it's not necessarily taking a 15% stake in the company?
I mean, is it semantics at that point? I don't know.
No, it's not semantics because one is a tax, as you said. It's 15%. I'm taxing it. It goes back to me. And the other is I actually have a place at the management table. Now, in a way, it might be academic because, you know, if you're the big bad U.S. government, you kind of, by definition, have a place at the table. But I would say, I thought they're taking an ownership stake. But please tell me if that's not right. I mean, this isn't the, you know, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac is that way, mortgage lenders. And so, I mean, I'm not suggesting this is the first ever private-public partnership, but I am saying I'd love to see this kick open the door, you know. No, the government is taking a 10% share of the company. They have a stake worth around $8.9 billion. So, no. The government is taking 10% ownership in Intel. That's how this is working. So,
I guess if the company agrees to it, that's okay, because it doesn't seem legal to me that the U.S. government could do that. There has to be rules against that, right?
I don't know if it's illegal. I mean, when you say the company agrees to it, I mean it's a deal made at gunpoint. I mean, you either do this or we're not going to greenlight your export of these chips to China. That's what I was saying before. So I don't think there's anything illegal about it. But I mean, when you say the companies seems okay with it, I mean, again, they're making the deal at gunpoint. So hard to say.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important, and that's why I wanted to make sure I got to it, because especially when you get his economic advisors going out publicly saying this is the beginning of a sovereign wealth fund, and this is the beginning of a public investment in private companies, you begin to open the door to picking winners and losers, right? There's a lot of government regulation and government putting its thumb on the scale of a lot of things, right? And so when the government has a piece of the action, then you know it's in their interest to make certain decisions that benefit their piece of the action.
Instead of the public,
So, I mean, that's hardly a free market. Kilmar Abrego Garcia is, I guess, his deportation is paused for now. That's what I'm seeing, Kim. A federal judge in Maryland temporarily blocking the administration from attempting to redeport Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the man they sent to that mega prison in El Salvador, and then he came back to the U.S. and they charged him with human smuggling. And the judge issuing this ruling just a couple of hours ago, the U.S. government is absolutely forbidden at this juncture to remove Mr. Abrego Garcia from the continental U.S. So
okay, I guess he is saved from Uganda for now.
Yeah.
Good day, sir.
Exactly. Anything else I'm leaving out?
There's a couple stories I wanted to make sure we get to before we go, and one of them is the thumbnail today. And you did mention it a little bit with Gary Dietrich, but I think talking about a little bit about what's happening with there's going to be a big press conference today with Governor Pritzker of Illinois, the mayor of Chicago, the state attorney general there, talking about how Trump's threats to send the National Guard, if not the active military members, to Chicago is not warranted by them. And they are saying that we are not asking for help and we don't want to be occupied.
Yeah. They're not looking forward to being occupied.
No.
They don't want to see the restaurant business crater. I love how Trump says, oh, you can't even get a restaurant reservation. Really? Restaurant reservations down 60%. Yeah, that's huge. I mean, I think, I'll just say I think there's a little bluster to what Trump is talking about when he talks about going to Chicago. I mean, I think that's a little bit of red meat sent to his crew. I think Gary Dietrich very smartly points out that, you know, it's a check on the box of law and order. We won't accept crime in our big cities when I'm president type thing. But unfortunately, that's where the legalities really, I think, may prevent him from doing. Now, he can always, you know, declare an emergency of some kind. He did it in LA, and he may do it in Chicago. I mean, this may be the the way in which you're seeing essentially a preview of the way in which he is going to handle things around election time, or slowly grow the kind of authoritarianism that is germinating now. But it might be harder in Chicago, is the point. So in D.C., he has the power. In Chicago, he doesn't legally have the power. So it would be a reach. But what else do you have?
Two more things. It seems the Department of Defense could be undergoing a name change. The thinking is that it was previously, according to Trump, called the Department of War.
Well, it's not according to Trump. That's exactly right. It was called
But that's what he's mentioning. So the people are saying he's probably going to. Trump said he has a feeling a name change may be coming soon. So we could see a Department of War instead of a Department of Defense. And also, the president wants the Justice Department to go after people who are burning the American flag, which I thought was constitutionally protected. But Trump signed an executive order today ordering Attorney General Bondi to prosecute anyone who violates existing flag desecration laws. He said burning the flag incites riots. So he wants the DOJ to pursue litigation to clarify the scope of the First Amendment relating to flag desecration.
Well, I'll just speak to this. First of all, the Supreme Court ruled on this. They ruled 5-4 that flag burning is protected speech under the First Amendment. So I don't know what he's saying. I don't know what he can do with the executive order or whatever, but that's kind of where that is. I mean, I'm not crazy about the American flag being burned, but I mean, it is protected speech. Right. So there is that. What was the first of the department? You've got a little bit of this. Didn't I send this to you when he was talking? He's musing and he's talking about changing the name of the Pentagon. Or is there something from Trump's? No, do I not have anything with you on that, Tony? I thought I might have sent you something on that. But I saw it when he talked about the, Department of War. It's so weird to me that he would focus on this, and it so exposes what I've always talked about. And I've talked about this to all of my lefties about how Trump, they felt would be this, anti-war guy. He wants to get out of Ukraine. He wants to get out of all of these theaters of conflict. And I said, this is ridiculous. You're rewriting the Trump first term. He, at the end of his first term, he opened fire on Iran. Remember, he took out the number 3 person in Iran. And we're only lucky that Iran just didn't respond in any kind of substantial way. They kind of made a pro forma response. But Trump, look at how he moves the military troops around like props. He's all about war. He's all about conflict. And now you're seeing it play out. You saw the Iranian bombing. You saw the Yemen bombing on the Houthis. And when you hear him muse that we should call it the Department of War, you realize he likes that aggression. He likes that toxic masculinity, But
I thought he was the peace president.
And so when he talks about defense, he speaks about defense in a way that suggests I'm going to bolster the existing defense apparatus. And that seems like a really great thing to talk about. But when you want to change the name of the Department of Defense to the Department of War, I think it betrays your real loyalties, which are to conflict. So it, in a way, once again, the quiet said out loud, But that's where we are. I guess that's it. I'm glad you included those two because those are pretty big. So do I have anything else, Kim?
I think so. I think you have some people to thank that we should
I don't know how we get so far behind on this show, Tony. It's not
Thanks, Tony. You have a lot to say.
I just don't know.
I blame you.
I don't know. I think Blue Spark with a $10 super sticker. Big shout out to you.
Big shout out.
Thank you. Appreciate the $10 super sticker, Blue Spark. It's very, very cool. Richard Delamater. Do you want to read his
He says, "Oh, bro, so sorry. I was being exuberant, not yelling because of text. You can't hear the inflections. Nothing but love for you and your show," he says.
Oh, that's very sweet. I mean,
Yeah.
I love that. And I love my Richard Delamater. And being careful has got us nowhere, says Uncle Scrooge with a $2. Yeah, well, I mean, it's not being... You have to be careful, but I understand your point, that all of a sudden you're faced with a ruthlessness and a brutality. There seems to be... You kind of have to up the ante, I guess, but, you know, everything peaceful, as you can see, I represent. Our refineries aren't
built to refine the pure oil we pull up now, Mark.
Oh, I don't know about that locomotion. You can, I don't know. I don't know. I just know that whatever pure oil we pull up, the American people should own a piece of it. It's coming from our land. It's destroying our land. It's defiling our habitats. I want a piece of it. You want to be able to do all those things and not give me, the American people, any piece of it? No, not on my watch would be where I am. I think Mark is right about everything, says SP.
I think that's a perfect way to end the show. Nice.
I love SP. I want a little more SP on this show. I really do, Tony.
Do you know who I am? I'm kind of a big deal.
I don't think people do realize it, Tony. They think I'm just some other a-hole on YouTube flapping. They don't realize you're getting magic here. I also wanted to recognize Idaho Deb, edited her Patreon contribution that comes in monthly from $10 to $15 a month. Come on. I also want to recognize a couple of new Patreon supporters. Pinot Man, $5 a month. Come on, Pinot Man. Really, really cool. And Carol at $5 a month on Patreon. Come on. That is super cool, Carol. Thank you. Really do appreciate it. And finally, Karen Martinez, $25 to $30 a month. Wow, thank you. She just upped her Patreon support. That so matters. This is how we stay on the air, honestly, with all of you people. I'm going to go through with Tony and look at even more that we'll thank in the next few shows, but really appreciate Patreon and PayPal. Both are great ways to support this show. They're click-throughs under all of our video. Too much Trump. Time for a martini at the Red Jack, says Harry Magnan. Yeah, I feel you, kid. I feel you. There's the Red Jack in San Francisco. We love the Red Jack. Oof. Indeed. By the way, I had gotten a couple of emails like, I don't want to use Patreon or PayPal. Is there another way I can support the show? If you send me an email at themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com, I can give you the address of the show and you can send a check if that is something that you are so inclined to do. Again, you don't have to, but if that's something you're legitimately inquiring about, themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. You have to put the in there, themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. And in that way, you can support us the old school way. You can send a check. Mark, you are way too nice to Legacy Media. We do not cover Trump properly. Oh, they do not cover Trump properly. If they did, there would be millions on the street. Watching Legacy News Channel makes Trump look like any other president. I think you're right about the fact that they cover what the president said today and did today. And in that sense, you could say they're normalizing him. You could also say that they take that hour and 20-minute stream of consciousness that he did today, which included signing this executive order against flag burning and talking more about the takeover of Chicago on the heels of taking over Washington. And you could say, hey, if you've only covered that with a couple of sound bites from Trump, he sounds pretty sane. But if you actually watch longer and you see his ranting and making up different statistics and making up different numbers and claiming things that are just clearly absurd, you realize he's just a BS machine. It's just crazy. And then his crew behind him, Amen Corner, just knocking their heads up and down. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Oh, my God, sir. You're the greatest. So you're right. The mainstream media looks at everything through a very, very tight lens of focus. You get more on platforms like this one. So, Mark, love all that you do, says
Yay.
Steve, go shoot. And that's my girl on the right. That's Kim. Keep fighting the good fight. Wow. Kim, you get a shout out from Steve.
Kim, how are you?
Hey, thanks, Steve.
Steve, you were very cool with the $10 super chat. Appreciate that. What a great way to go out. I love it. Quill Classic says Donald Trump is selling merch in the White House gift shop, emblazoned with slogans like Trump 2028. He has no intention of leaving. Well, I couldn't agree more.
I've come from regular stock.
Yeah, he's got the help of the Supreme Court to work around whatever restrictions there might be, but he's going to be an older man. I don't know that he's going to be. But this regime will not step down based on an election. It just isn't going to happen. And we can work back, and when I reserve the right and hope that I can modify that position in some way, but I think the complete power grab that's gone on and going on is only going to get worse. So, and that doesn't mean that all of America is destroyed or all of America, but it does mean that politically, I think the future is fraught with a lot of danger. And this crew, I just think they're going nowhere. So they may take on new faces, J.D. Vance, enabled by the Peter Thiels of the world, the Palantirs of the world, the Musks of the world. We'll see. There's a lot going on here, but I think it's a pretty grim scene politically, at the top anyway. So,
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
But tomorrow, some good news. And we take on an old school GOPer. You'll see that conversation tomorrow. Till then, bye-bye.